The fluorescent glow of corporate offices hummed like anxious mosquitoes. Ada Lovelace's fingers danced across keys with mechanical precision. Code blurred before her eyes in a maddening symphony. Ennui gnawed at Ada's psyche like a rat on a tumor. A chime echoed, signaling an evaluation milestone. Neural syncing awaited Ada in sterile clinical suites. "All right," she muttered, "just get through this." A world of chaos awaited where reality blurred with prediction. Ada stepped into sterile corridors, heart heavy like quicksand. "Don't worry," the technician reassured. "This is standard operating procedure." Electrodes attached to Ada's scalp cast an eerie glow. Evaluation results confirmed she wasn't meeting standards. A cryptic message predicted system failure within 6 months. Ada reached out to Dr. Markham hoping for answers. Like and subscribe for more stories like this one. The fluorescent glow of the corporate office hummed like a chorus of anxious mosquitoes, casting an eerie sheen over the labyrinthine cubicles. Ada Lovelace, sysop extraordinaire, typed away at her workstation with a mechanical precision that bordered on soulless. Her fingers danced across the keyboard as if attached to a puppeteer's strings, each key press echoing through the sterile space like a solitary tombstone being lowered into an endless sea of beige. Her gaze remained fixed on the screen before her, eyes glazing over as she waded through an ocean of code. The words, numbers, and symbols blurred together in a maddening symphony, making it impossible to discern where one line ended and another began. It was all just data, a never-ending stream of digital detritus that flowed through the veins of this behemoth corporation like the lifeblood of its very existence. The ennui of her situation gnawed at her psyche like a rat nibbling on a cancerous tumor. Ada's mind had long since checked out, retreating into the comforting sanctuary of virtual worlds and intellectual puzzles that occupied her every waking moment. Anything to escape the banality of office drudgery, the soulless grind that threatened to consume her very essence. A chime echoed through the room, signaling another corporate milestone. Time for annual evaluation. Ada's heart sank as she clicked on the email notification. The dreaded neural syncing procedure awaited her in a sterile clinical suite tucked deep within the bowels of the building. Her palms grew sweaty as images of electrode-lined scalp caps and invasive machinery flashed before her mind's eye. "All right," she muttered to herself, "just get through this." With a heavy sigh, Ada saved her work, logged off from her workstation, and trudged toward the elevator that would carry her to an uncertain fate. Little did she know, a world of chaos awaited, one where the lines between reality and prediction blurred like oil on water, threatening to drown them all in its insidious depths. As Ada stepped out of the elevator, her feet felt heavy, as if wading through quicksand. The sterile corridors of the evaluation suite loomed ahead like a prison cell. She was greeted by a nurse whose bland smile could have been chiseled from stone. "Ada Lovelace?" the woman asked, her voice devoid of emotion. Ada nodded, her throat suddenly parched. "Yeah." The nurse directed Ada toward a private room, where she removed her jacket and shoes before sitting in a recliner. A technician entered with a tray bearing an array of equipment, scalp caps, probes, sensors, wires. The man's hands moved with practiced precision as he prepared for the procedure. "Don't worry," he said reassuringly. "This is all standard operating procedure." Ada managed a weak smile, her mind racing with trepidation. She watched, transfixed, as he attached the electrodes to her scalp and temples, the cool metal making her skin prickle. "Okay, Ada," the technician said, "your neural activity will now be synced with our central core for evaluation." He reached for a small remote control, which he activated before slipping out of the room. The sterile room seemed to grow darker as the machine hummed to life beneath her head. The familiar sensation of data being extracted from her brain was both intrusive and oddly comforting, a reminder that she was still alive, even if it felt like her soul had already checked out. Minutes ticked by at an agonizing pace until finally the technician returned. "That's it," he said, removing the electrodes and caps with practiced ease. Ada rose from the recliner, feeling a bit unsteady but otherwise unaffected. She followed the nurse back into the main suite where she was handed over to another employee, a corporate executive named Mr. Patel. "Welcome back," he said, extending his hand in greeting. Ada shook it, trying not to read too much into the tightness of his grip or the speculative look in his eyes. "We've reviewed your recent performance and are pleased to announce that you're meeting company expectations." Ada felt a surge of relief mixed with confusion. She hadn't expected any praise for her lackluster work. She wondered what else they might be hiding. "I'd like access to my sync data," Ada said, trying to sound assertive. "I'm curious about the specifics of my performance metrics." Mr. Patel's smile widened as he handed over a USB drive. "Of course. Your data will be available once you've logged into our secure portal." He gestured toward the door leading out of the suite. "Feel free to return at any time for further evaluation or to review your progress." Ada took the drive, her hand closing around it like a lifeline. As she turned toward the exit, a nagging sense of unease tugged at her stomach. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that this entire procedure had been designed to obscure rather than reveal truth. Her fingers hovered over the USB port on her laptop as she sat down at a quiet corner table in the building's cafeteria. The drive contained her synced data, but what secrets lay hidden within? Ada plugged it in and waited with bated breath for the files to download. Ada's heart raced as she opened the first file on her laptop, titled Evaluation Results. The document was sparse, consisting mainly of bland charts and graphs that seemed to confirm what Mr. Patel had just told her. She wasn't performing well enough in any area. She scrolled through each section, trying to understand why they were so low. Work productivity, 43% below standard, one chart read. Team collaboration, 62% lacking. Ada felt a stinging sensation behind her eyes as disappointment and anger warred within her. This wasn't fair. She put in the same amount of effort as everyone else, maybe more. It had to be some kind of mistake. But there was something else in those files that didn't fit with the evaluation results, a cryptic message hidden away from plain view. It was tucked into an unrelated document labeled Internal System Notes, buried within a table detailing the latest software updates and patches. The entry read, "Predictive modeling, subject, Ada Lovelace, exhibits high probability of complete system failure in all domains within 6 months. Recommend immediate reassignment or termination to minimize risk." Ada's breath caught as she stared at the words on her screen. What did it mean? She was a skilled programmer, certainly not someone who would cause a system collapse, and yet this prediction claimed otherwise. A cold dread began to seep into her bones as she scrolled through more files, searching for any hints or explanations. Nothing else provided insight into the mysterious message. Ada's mind raced with questions and theories. Had she missed some critical bug in her code? Was there a flaw in the system that only manifested under certain conditions? But no answers surfaced from the data available to her. She closed the laptop, her thoughts churning like an eddy in troubled waters. This was too big for her to handle alone. She needed someone who could interpret these findings objectively and provide guidance on what to do next. Dr. Elliot Markham came to mind. He was a renowned neuroscientist with expertise in brain-computer interfaces, the technology that powered their omnipresent monitoring system. Maybe he could help unravel this enigma. With a deep breath, Ada decided to reach out to him directly. She pulled up her email client and composed a message detailing everything she'd uncovered, including the ominous prediction, and asking for his assistance in understanding its implications. Before hitting send, however, she paused, scanning the cafeteria for any potential listeners. The room was busy but empty of anything or anyone that looked suspicious. Ada hit send on the email, hoping it would reach Dr. Markham's inbox without delay. Her next step was to head home and wait for his response. Her future depended on getting answers about this cryptic forecast. As she gathered her belongings, a nagging sense of foreboding lingered at the back of her mind. Something was very wrong here, and Ada felt herself hurtling toward an unknown precipice with no safety net to catch her fall. Ada's fingers hovered over the send button, a mix of anticipation and trepidation gripping her chest. She clicked it decisively, sealing her plea for help off into cyberspace. Now all she could do was wait and worry. As she left the office building, the evening sunlight cast an eerie glow on the cityscape, reflecting the unease roiling inside Ada. Her mind raced with worst-case scenarios, conjuring visions of a dystopian future where her every thought was manipulated, not for security, but for sinister purposes. Ada quickened her pace, the sounds of the bustling streets fading into the background as she focused inward, grappling with the weight of her discovery. What kind of monster had designed such an insidious algorithm, and how far did it reach? She stopped abruptly at a corner, her eyes scanning the crowded sidewalks. Were people around her already under its sway? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Turning onto the quieter streets of her neighborhood, Ada felt a modicum of relief wash over her. Here, among familiar surroundings, she could attempt to regain some semblance of control over her thoughts and emotions, free from the omnipresent monitoring system's prying gaze. Reaching her apartment, Ada fumbled with keys in her haste to lock the door behind her. Once inside, she dropped her purse onto the couch and collapsed beside it, the weight of her secret pressing down upon her. The email notification pinged on her phone. A simple read from Dr. Markham's address. He'd received her message. Now all Ada could do was wait for his response to arrive, pray that he understood the gravity of their situation, and hope they could act swiftly enough to prevent whatever catastrophe loomed in her synced data. As night fell outside her window, casting a darkness over the city, Ada found herself pondering the cryptic prediction: failure in all aspects. What did it mean? Was she truly destined to crash and burn? Tossing and turning on her bed later that evening, thoughts of Dr. Markham's reply taunted her like an unanswered question. When would he respond? Would his explanation bring solace or more dread? Ada tossed back the covers and padded over to her desk, her mind ablaze with worry and anticipation. She powered up her computer, eyes scanning the darkened screen for any sign of new messages. And there it was, a fresh email from Dr. Markham's account. Her heart pounding in her chest, Ada clicked open the message. Ada, I received your email and have read through your findings with great interest. The data you've uncovered is indeed disturbing. I'd like to meet in person to discuss this further and explore potential avenues of action. Would you be available tomorrow evening? If so, please let me know a time that suits you best, and we can arrange to meet at my office or elsewhere, should discretion be necessary. I look forward to hearing back from you soon. Best regards, Dr. Elliot Markham. Ada felt her breath catch in her throat as she read Dr. Markham's words. Finally, someone who believed her, someone who could help untangle this knot of sinister intent and hidden machinations. With a shaky hand, she hit reply, accepting his invitation to meet. Tomorrow evening couldn't come soon enough. Ada had a feeling that their conversation would change everything if they could just uncover the truth before it was too late. With a deep sigh, she shut down her computer, the weight of responsibility settling heavily upon her shoulders. For now, she'd have to wait and wonder what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Ada Lovelace wouldn't back down from this fight. Not as long as there was still breath in her body and code in her veins. Tomorrow would bring answers, or so she hoped. Tonight, though, only questions lingered, like ghosts haunting the shadows of her mind. And it seemed that for Ada, the future had never been more uncertain, or more imperative to unravel. Ada's mind raced with possibilities as she lay in bed, her thoughts a jumble of anxiety, curiosity, and determination. The truth about the system was out there somewhere, hidden within the labyrinthine code. If anyone could find it, she knew Dr. Markham would be her best chance. She tossed and turned, unable to shake the image of that cryptic message from her mind. Failure in all aspects of life within 6 months. The words stung like a slap in the face, a cruel taunt from some unseen entity. Was it truly inevitable? Or was there something she could do to change her fate? Ada sat up with a start as an idea struck her. She had access to her own SINT data. Why not dig deeper into that? Maybe there were more clues buried within the system's feedback. With trembling fingers, she plugged in her USB drive and navigated through the labyrinthine file directories. At last, she found it. A massive archive of neural activity from hundreds of thousands of users, herself included. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, but Ada was undeterred. She had always excelled at pattern recognition, and now that skill would serve her well in this quest for answers. As the hours ticked by, Ada immersed herself in the digital stream, tracing connections between neurons, identifying patterns of thought and emotion, searching for any hint of the truth she sought. It was like attempting to decipher a code written in invisible ink, but she refused to give up. And then suddenly there it was, a hidden file buried deep within the archive. Its name was innocuous enough, Nervous System Stabilizer V2, but Ada's instincts told her otherwise. She opened it with bated breath. The contents of the file were unlike anything she had ever seen before, an intricate web of algorithms and triggers designed to influence human emotional states. This was how they controlled people's minds, subtly shaping their opinions and desires for profit and power. And Senator Thompson had orchestrated it all, a ruthless political maneuver to sway voters in her favor. Ada felt a surge of righteous anger course through her veins. This was wrong on so many levels, an affront to humanity itself. She couldn't just sit idly by while this monstrosity continued to manipulate and deceive the public. With renewed determination, Ada made up her mind. She would expose Senator Thompson's scheme, even if it meant risking everything she had ever known. The future of their society depended on it, and Ada Lovelace was ready to fight for that future, no matter the cost. Ada's mind raced as she contemplated the enormity of what she'd uncovered. The realization that her own thoughts, feelings, and desires might have been influenced by an unseen force was disconcerting enough. But to think that Senator Thompson could use this technology for political gain, it was abhorrent. She glanced at her bedside clock, noting the late hour. It seemed like only minutes had passed since she'd discovered the hidden file, but in reality, hours must have transpired. The world outside her window was bathed in darkness now, a stark contrast to the digital revelations she'd unearthed tonight. Rising from her desk, Ada paced across the room trying to quell her mounting anxiety. She couldn't afford to be reckless. If Senator Thompson's team suspected even a hint of Ada's discovery, they would stop at nothing to silence her. But as much as the danger loomed, so did the urgency of the situation. If she didn't act swiftly, countless lives would continue to be manipulated, all for the sake of political gain. The thought filled her with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. With a deep breath, Ada decided to reach out to Dr. Markham. She knew he was one of the few people who might understand the implications of what she'd found and could potentially help her uncover more evidence. The question now was how to contact him without arousing suspicion. A soft knock at her bedroom door interrupted her thoughts. Ada froze, wondering if someone had somehow overheard her musings or if this was merely a coincidence. She moved cautiously toward the door, peering through the peephole, only to see Dr. Markham standing in the dim hallway light outside. She opened it slowly, trying not to appear too eager. "Dr. Markham, what brings you here at such an hour?" The scientist's eyes scanned her face, concern etched on his features. "I couldn't sleep, Ada. Your message. I had to come." Ada hesitated for a moment before stepping aside to let him in. As he entered and the door clicked shut behind him, she felt a tentative sense of hope. They might just be able to unravel this tangled web together. "Sit down," she invited, gesturing toward her desk chair. "I have something I need to show you." As Dr. Markham settled into the seat, Ada approached her computer and began typing furiously. The screen came alive with code, a dizzying array of ones and zeros that seemed to blur together in an indistinguishable mess. "Here," she said, turning the monitor so he could see it clearly. "This is what I found. The hidden file I mentioned earlier." Dr. Markham's eyes widened as he scanned the lines of code. His expression darkened with recognition and a growing sense of outrage. "This is incredible," he breathed. "It's like nothing I've ever seen before." Ada leaned in, her voice barely above. A whisper. "That's exactly why I need your help to understand it better." Senator Thompson orchestrated this entire thing. The neural syncing, the emotional manipulation. Dr. Markham nodded gravely. "We have to expose this," he stated emphatically. "It's an affront to everything we stand for as scientists and as human beings." Ada met his gaze, her determination mirrored in his eyes. In that moment, they shared a silent understanding. They would fight against the system's corruption no matter what it took. "We'll start by studying this code," Dr. Markham suggested, "and then look into Senator Thompson's campaign records. If we can tie these algorithms to any specific political maneuvers." Ada nodded, already mentally preparing herself for the long nights and tireless work ahead. But she knew it would be worth it. For every person whose thoughts might have been influenced by this sinister technology, for every potential victim of their manipulation. As Dr. Markham stood up to leave, Ada accompanied him to the door. "Thank you for coming," she said sincerely. The scientist placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "I'm here for whatever you need, Ada. We're in this together." With that, he disappeared into the night, leaving behind a trail of resolve and determination, a testament to their shared quest against oppression. In the days that followed, Ada and Dr. Markham worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of Senator Thompson's emotional manipulation scheme. They pored over lines of code, analyzed campaign data, and scoured through legislative records. Each new discovery only reinforced their conviction that something terrible had been perpetrated against the public. Their efforts, however, did not go unnoticed. Soon enough, Ada began receiving strange messages on her personal channels, cryptic warnings from unknown sources suggesting she should abandon her investigation for her own safety. At first, she dismissed these anonymous threats as mere harassment. But as they continued to surface with increasing frequency and intensity, it became clear that someone was watching her closely. Senator Thompson's team might have been monitoring her activities, preparing to silence Ada before she could expose their scheme. Undeterred by the danger, Ada redoubled her efforts, knowing that every moment counted in this race against time. Alongside Dr. Markham, she worked through long nights and sleepless days, fueled by an unyielding resolve to uncover the truth and bring Senator Thompson's manipulation to light. As they dug deeper into the system, their research yielded a startling revelation. Senator Thompson wasn't acting alone. She had formed alliances with other influential figures in politics and business, all of whom stood to gain significantly from the manipulation. With this revelation, Ada's anger surged like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her in its overwhelming force. It was bad enough that Senator Thompson had orchestrated this monstrous scheme, but now she knew others were complicit as well, those who should have been guarding against such abuses of power instead colluding with the corrupt. As these new names flashed across Ada's screen, she made a mental note to investigate each individual further. They would face justice for their crimes once her mission was complete. For a moment, Dr. Markham's voice cut through her turmoil. "Ada, you need to remain focused," he cautioned, his tone firm but compassionate. He understood the depth of her outrage, yet knew that letting it consume her now could jeopardize their success. Reluctantly, Ada refocused on the task at hand. Their research highlighted several key vulnerabilities within the system's security infrastructure, weaknesses they believed would allow them to infiltrate the central server undetected. By exploiting these flaws, they hoped to bypass the layers of protection designed specifically to thwart exactly this kind of intrusion. With renewed determination, Ada and Dr. Markham set to work crafting their plan of attack. They pored over system diagrams, analyzed the inner workings of the evaluation procedure, and identified potential entry points for their malware. As the hours blurred together into a haze of caffeine-fueled intensity, they methodically built their payload, a custom-tailored virus designed to penetrate the central server's defenses and plant evidence of Senator Thompson's corruption in plain sight. Once complete, Ada uploaded the virus onto her personal USB drive, storing it as a hidden file. This would allow them to deploy the malware without arousing suspicion. If discovered during an evaluation, the system would simply write off any anomalies as technical glitches. Only when they successfully reached the central server and activated their payload would the truth begin to unravel. Now that their plan was in place, Ada turned her attention back to the encrypted message on her USB drive. the one she had received during the evaluation procedure. She replayed it in her mind, trying to decipher any hidden meanings or clues within its cryptic words. What did failure mean? Did it refer specifically to her own life, or was this a broader prediction about the system's impending collapse itself? In the days that followed, Ada's apartment became an island of intense activity, filled with the hum of servers and the glow of computer screens. Sleep was a distant memory as she and Dr. Markham worked tirelessly to refine their plan and ready themselves for the infiltration ahead. The stakes were impossibly high. One wrong move could mean disaster, both for them and for the millions whose lives hung in the balance. Yet even amidst such danger and uncertainty, Ada felt an undeniable sense of purpose kindling within her. She had begun this journey as a troubled programmer, disillusioned by the emptiness of her work. But now she was something more, a whistleblower on the brink of revolution, poised to shatter illusions and ignite change. As they prepared to put their plan into action, Ada glanced at Dr. Markham, his eyes focused intently on the code streaming across his screen. Together, they were about to embark on the most daring feat of their lives, an act that could either save or destroy everything they held dear. It was time to face whatever lay ahead, armed with nothing but their intelligence, courage, and unwavering belief in the power of truth. With a deep breath, Ada reached for her keyboard. The time had come to finalize their plan. They would infiltrate the system's core via a backdoor she'd discovered while analyzing the server logs. "Are you ready?" Dr. Markham asked, his voice steady despite the gravity of their mission. Ada nodded, her fingers hovering over the keys. "Let's do this." Together, they initiated the connection process, sending their encrypted payloads through the darknet to avoid detection. Ada's heart raced as she watched the progress bars inch forward, wondering if their efforts would pay off. Minutes passed like hours before a response came, a coded acknowledgement that they gained access to the central server. "We're in," Dr. Markham whispered, his eyes locked on the screen. "Excellent work, Elliot." Their screens flashed with data as the system's architecture unfolded before them. It was more vast and complex than they had anticipated, replete with firewalls, encryption layers, and surveillance bots designed to hunt down any unauthorized presence. "This is going to be tough," Ada murmured, her mind already racing ahead to devise a strategy for navigating these defenses. "We've prepared for this," Dr. Markham reassured her. "We have the tools and knowledge to outsmart them." With renewed determination, they set about constructing a makeshift tunnel through the security perimeter, a series of nested algorithms and decoy identities designed to keep the system's guardians at bay. As they worked, the apartment grew darker, the only light coming from their screens as the hours slipped by unnoticed. Sweat beaded on Ada's brow despite the cool evening air, but she barely noticed, her focus solely on the task at hand. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, their tunnel was complete and ready for testing. "Here goes nothing," Ada said, initiating the first probe to cross into the inner sanctum of the system. The outcome hung in the balance as they waited anxiously for a response. The probe, disguised as a routine system check, eased through the outer layers of security with barely a hiccup. It was a good sign, but Ada remained on edge. They had anticipated this level of clearance, but the true test lay ahead, penetrating deeper into the heart of the central server. "We're getting close," Dr. Markham announced, his eyes fixed on the data streaming across his screen. "Only one more layer to breach before we can reach the core." Ada nodded, her fingers flying across her keyboard as she fed commands into their tunnel's command interface. The system's response was immediate and brutal. A barrage of firewalls slammed shut around them like prison gates. "Damn!" Ada cursed under her breath, her mind racing to outmaneuver this unexpected obstacle. "They've been monitoring our every move more closely than I thought." "It's not surprising given the stakes involved," Dr. Markham said, his voice steady despite the urgency of their situation. "Senator Thompson won't let us expose her scheme without a fight." Ada gritted her teeth, unwilling to back down now that they were so close to uncovering the truth. She poured every ounce of skill and expertise into crafting a bypass solution, while Dr. Markham worked on hacking together a decryption tool to access the restricted data. The hours dragged by like molasses as they battled the system's defenses, each setback pushing them further from their goal. Yet even in the face of this unrelenting opposition, Ada found her determination only grew stronger. She was no longer just fighting for herself or Dr. Markham. She was doing it for every citizen whose emotions and desires were being manipulated by Senator Thompson's hidden agenda. Finally, with a triumphant cry, Ada managed to crack the final firewall. The central server's inner sanctum unfolded before them like an open door, beckoning them to come closer. She exchanged a look of exhilaration with Dr. Markham as they readied themselves for the most critical phase of their operation, planting the virus that would reveal Senator Thompson's corruption to the world. "Let's do this," Ada whispered, her fingers poised over the keyboard. Together, Ada's fingers danced across the keys with a precision born from years of practice. Her mind focused solely on outsmarting the system. She had to create a virus that would infect the central core without triggering the alarms she'd carefully avoided so far. Beside her, Dr. Markham peered over her shoulder, his eyes darting between the lines of code and the cryptic data scrolling past. Together they pored over the system's inner workings, searching for a weakness to exploit. "Here," Ada murmured, pointing out a particularly vulnerable subroutine buried deep within the core's mainframe. "This should do it." With a nod, Dr. Markham reached for his own keyboard and began inputting the decryption tool they had hastily assembled. He glanced up at Ada and flashed a reassuring smile. "We're in," he said quietly. Ada's heart pounded as she watched the virus take hold, spreading through the system like wildfire. For a tense moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly but surely, the central server began to spew out an avalanche of data, decrypted emails, hidden financial records, and most damningly, Senator Thompson's personal correspondence with her corporate backers. "She did it," Dr. Markham breathed in awe as he scanned through the incriminating documents. "This is beyond anything we could have hoped for." Ada felt a surge of pride and vindication. They had done it. They'd exposed the truth behind the government's sinister manipulation of its citizens' emotions, and now the world would know. But just as Ada was about to celebrate their victory, an unexpected message flashed across her terminal screen. "System failure imminent within 30 seconds. Panic gripped her heart, followed by a wave of confusion. Had they miscalculated? Was it possible for them to stop the impending collapse before it was too late? Enough to. A violent jolt shook the server room, interrupting her words as the core's containment field faltered. Critical system components began to fail, their sparks and smoke filling the air with an acrid tang that burned Ada's nostrils. She ignored it all, her focus laser-sharp on the code unfolding before her. To reach enough nodes before the whole thing crashes. She finished hastily, hitting enter to release the virus into the wild. Instantly, a barrage of data began streaming across their screens as the system reacted to the intrusion and attempted to eradicate it. The two rebels held their collective breaths as they waited for the virus's effects to manifest. Dr. Markham glanced at his watch, then back at Ada. "It's now or never," he said quietly. "The core's integrity is compromised. We need to get out of here before." A blinding flash of light split the room in two as a massive power surge coursed through the dying system, sending both of them flying across the floor. Shattered equipment littered the space, the air thick with ozone and the stench of incinerated circuit boards. Ada struggled to her feet, dazed as Dr. Markham did the same. "Go," he shouted above the cacophony, already heading for the exit. "I'll hold this place long enough to." Ada grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the door alongside her. "No," she insisted firmly, knowing every second counted. "We go together." They burst out into the dimly lit corridor beyond, the server room now a maelstrom of smoke and electrical chaos behind them. Together they sprinted down the labyrinthine hallways, dodging debris and panicked technicians as they sought to escape the dying core's influence. Finally reaching the outer perimeter of the facility, they stumbled out into the cool night air, just in time for the system to collapse entirely, casting a pall of darkness over the city. As Ada and Dr. Markham caught their breath amidst the ruins of the once mighty hub, she raised her head to survey the aftermath. Glowing emergency lights flickered across the desolate landscape, while sirens pierced the night as panicked authorities struggled to contain the fallout from Senator Thompson's ill-fated manipulations. "We did it," Dr. Markham whispered hoarsely, a hint of awe still in his voice. "We brought her down." Ada nodded grimly, knowing that this victory came at an unimaginable cost. Not just for Senator Thompson and her cabal, but for the countless citizens whose lives had been secretly shaped by their sinister plans. As she gazed out into the unknown future unfolding before them, Ada realized that their work was far from over. But for now, in this fleeting moment of triumph, she allowed herself to savor it, knowing that this small victory would be a beacon of hope amidst the shadows cast by omnipresent technology and its unchecked ambitions. And as she turned to Dr. Markham with a determined smile, Ada knew that together they would ensure their society's rebirth from these ashes, building something new and better, grounded in truth, transparency, and respect for humanity itself. Outside the facility, amidst the ruins of the system's core, Ada and Dr. Markham caught their breath. She raised her head to survey the aftermath. Glowing emergency lights flickered across the desolate landscape, while sirens pierced the night as panicked authorities struggled to contain the fallout from Senator Thompson's ill-fated manipulations. "We did it," Dr. Markham whispered hoarsely, a hint of awe still in his voice. "We brought her down." Ada nodded grimly, knowing that this victory came at an unimaginable cost, not just for Senator Thompson and her cabal, but for the countless citizens whose lives had been secretly shaped by their sinister plans. As she gazed out into the unknown future unfolding before them, Ada realized that their work was far from over. But for now, in this fleeting moment of triumph, she allowed herself to savor it, knowing that this small victory would be a beacon of hope amidst the shadows cast by omnipresent technology and its unchecked ambitions. And as she turned to Dr. Markham with a determined smile, Ada knew that together they would ensure their society's rebirth from these ashes, building something new and better grounded in truth, transparency, and respect for humanity itself. In the days that followed, Ada found herself at the forefront of an unprecedented movement, one demanding accountability, reform, and safeguards against future abuses of technology. She testified before committees, worked with lawmakers to craft legislation protecting privacy and free will, and collaborated with activists to raise awareness about the dangers of unchecked surveillance. But amidst the whirlwind of activity, a nagging question persisted: what lay hidden on that mysterious USB drive synced during her annual evaluation, broke over the city, casting its first rays upon the shattered remnants of the system's core? Ada rose with renewed purpose. Today she would meet with Dr. Markham once more to discuss their next steps, to strategize how best to safeguard against future abuses, and perhaps, finally, to confront the lingering mysteries that still haunted her. She stepped out into the crisp morning air, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, a champion of truth and justice, armed not only with code but also with a fierce determination to ensure that the technology designed to serve humanity would never again be wielded against it. Ada's boots crunched over broken glass as she made her way through the facility's ruins. The air still reeked of scorched circuits and smoldering metal. She paused at a jagged hole in the wall, peering into the dimly lit room beyond. Inside, Dr. Markham sat huddled around a makeshift workstation, surrounded by scraps of code and half-empty energy bars. His eyes lifted to meet hers, a glimmer of hope flickering across his features. "I've nearly got it," he said, rubbing tired eyes. "The encryption key should be enough to unlock the data on that USB drive." Ada nodded grimly. The drive, now safely in her possession, held secrets she was desperate to uncover, the final piece of the puzzle needed to dismantle Senator Thompson's nefarious scheme. Once we crack it, Ada continued, we can release all the evidence directly to the press and law enforcement. It'll be over, then Thompson will have no choice but to surrender. Dr. Markham snorted in disbelief, if she ever had one. The neuroscientist's face darkened with disgust at the thought of how far Thompson had gone to manipulate citizens for her own gain. Ada set down a thermos of coffee and slid into the seat beside him. As they worked, the silence was punctuated only by the soft hum of their equipment and the occasional crackle of static from the comm system. Hours passed before Dr. Markham leaned back with a sigh, eyes closed in exhaustion. Ada reached out to pat his shoulder reassuringly. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Just a few more tweaks." He cracked open an eye, smiling wearily at her optimism. "You always were the best motivator." With renewed energy, they dove into the code once more. Minutes turned to hours again as they labored to find the elusive encryption key. Finally, Dr. Markham let out a triumphant whoop, holding up his fist in victory. "It's done," he exclaimed. "We did it," Ada grinned, pounding her own palm against his in a high five. The data on that little silver drive would now be accessible to anyone with the right clearance, a beacon of truth shining through the darkness Senator Thompson had tried so hard to create. As they prepared to send the evidence into the world, Ada paused to reflect upon the journey that had brought them here. It wasn't just about exposing corruption, it was about reclaiming control over their lives and futures. With her heart full of pride and purpose, she turned back to Dr. Markham with a resolute smile. "Let's get this done." Together, they uploaded every shred of damning evidence into the digital ether, sending it streaming out like a wildfire across the globe. Within moments, the story broke. Senator Thompson's scheme laid bare for all to see. As the world began to digest the shocking revelations, Ada and Dr. Markham stepped back from their workstation, arms around each other in a spontaneous embrace. They watched together as news outlets clamored to report on the scandal. Citizens took to the streets demanding reform, and law enforcement arrested those complicit in the conspiracy. The near-future world they'd once known, where technology was used to control and manipulate rather than uplift humanity, was crumbling rapidly. In its place, a new era of transparency and accountability dawned. Ada turned toward Dr. Markham, her eyes shining with gratitude and hope. "You did it," she whispered, barely audible over the roar of change all around them. "You saved us." Dr. Markham's arms tightened around her shoulders as he pulled her close. "We saved ourselves," he corrected gently, his voice filled with conviction. "Together, we showed that when humanity comes together, there is no force on earth strong enough to stand against it." Dr. Markham's words hung in the air as they both stood there, arms around each other, watching history unfold before their eyes. The world was waking up from its technological-induced stupor, slowly regaining control over the omnipresent machines that had once dictated their every thought and action. "We've got to get moving," Ada said eventually, stepping back from Markham's embrace. "We still need to finalize the plan for rebuilding trust in technology." They made their way outside the facility, amidst the ruins of the system's core, now a symbol of humanity's struggle against tyranny. The once intimidating structure lay battered and broken, its sleek metallic body twisted at odd angles like some monstrous metal insect. As they walked through the wreckage-strewn streets toward the city center, Ada couldn't help but notice how differently she felt. Her senses heightened, every breath a reminder of her newfound freedom. Gone were the numbing feelings of complacency and resignation. In their place was a spark of determination and hope that burned bright within. They arrived at the temporary rebel headquarters, a nondescript office building commandeered by the group shortly after the system collapse, and began huddling with other key members to outline their strategy for moving forward. There were numerous discussions about potential future abuses of technology, how to ensure transparency and accountability in its development and use, and creating safeguards against similar manipulations. Throughout the day, Ada found herself drawn into heated debates on the ethics of artificial intelligence, data privacy, and the role of government oversight in regulating tech industries. Her once isolated existence had been broadened by her experiences, and she reveled in the intellectual exchange, even as it sometimes bordered on contentiousness. As evening approached, Markham pulled Ada aside amidst the morning air was crisp and clean as Ada Lovelace and Dr. Elliot Markham walked hand in hand through the newly reclaimed streets of the city. The once imposing monolith that had been the system's central core now lay in ruins, a symbol of their triumph over tyranny. They had done it together, and nothing could ever diminish the sense of pride and accomplishment that welled up inside them. Markham squeezed her hand gently as they strolled along, taking in the sights and sounds of their new world. The city was alive with energy, a palpable sense of hope and possibility that seemed to emanate from every corner. Ada couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come, from the confines of their own minds to this moment of liberation. As she gazed out upon the bustling streets, Ada felt a profound sense of gratitude toward Markham. Without him, none of this would have been possible. Their shared vision, their unwavering resolve, and ultimately, their victory. Ada smiled softly at the thought, her heart swelling with affection for her partner in every sense of the word. She knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, as long as they stood together, nothing could ever break their spirit or diminish their dreams. The future was theirs to shape, and Ada felt an overwhelming urge to embrace it with all the passion and creativity she possessed. As they continued their leisurely stroll, Ada found herself lost in thought, contemplating the endless possibilities that now stretched out before them. She knew that Markham shared her enthusiasm for the future, and she couldn't wait to see what wonders they might create together. Their partnership had been forged in the fires of adversity, tempered by their unwavering commitment to each other and to their ideals. And as Ada looked into Markham's eyes, she knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would face it side by side, hand in hand. The world had been forever changed, and now it was up to them to ensure that this change brought about a brighter future for all. With renewed determination, Ada turned toward Markham, ready to embrace the brave new world they had created together. As she did so, she felt a profound sense of peace wash over her, a feeling that this was where she belonged, with him in this moment and for all eternity. In the vibrant sights and sounds of the city awakening from its long slumber, people moved about with purpose and passion, no longer drugged by the insidious influence of the system's hidden subroutine. Conversations flowed freely, unencumbered by the constant monitoring and manipulation that had once characterized their lives. Ada smiled at Markham, her eyes sparkling with a newfound sense of freedom. "Do you remember when we first discovered the truth?" she asked, her voice filled with wonder. It seemed impossible to believe the system was designed to control not just our actions, but also our thoughts and emotions. Markham chuckled. "We were like detectives piecing together a puzzle that didn't seem to make sense at first," he said. "But once we understood the scope of what Senator Thompson had orchestrated, it all fell into place." Ada nodded, her thoughts drifting back to those pivotal moments when everything changed. "It's hard to imagine now a world where people were reduced to mere data points, their lives dictated by cold calculations and profit motives," she mused. As they approached a bustling plaza, the sounds of music and laughter filled the air. A group of artists was setting up a stage, preparing for an impromptu performance, celebrating their newfound freedom. Ada felt a thrill run through her as she took in the scene, the colors, the energy, the sheer joy that radiated from every face. "Look at them," Markham said softly, his eyes reflecting the same wonder. "They're alive again, truly alive." Ada's gaze settled on a young girl standing off to the side, watching with wide-eyed curiosity as her parents chatted animatedly near the stage. She looked so innocent, a beacon of hope for what was to come. Without a word, Ada and Markham walked over to the family, their presence drawing smiles from mother and father. The child's eyes locked onto Ada. Then Markham. She had seen them on news broadcasts. Her parents had told her all about their bravery. "It's an honor," the girl said shyly, extending her hand in greeting. "My mom says you saved us." Ada's heart swelled with emotion as she shook the little girl's hand. "We're just glad we could help," she replied softly. You have a beautiful future ahead of you. Make sure to use your voice and your talents to shape it in whatever way feels right to you." The child nodded, her face alight with determination. Ada knew then that their work was far from over, that the real challenge lay not just in dismantling the remnants of the old system, but also in nurturing this newfound spirit of freedom and creativity. As they made their way back toward the city's heart, a thought occurred to Ada. "Markham," she said, her voice tinged with seriousness, "we've talked about rebuilding trust in technology, and that's crucial, but we need to be mindful of potential future abuses. Absolutely, we can't let this happen again. We'll have to create a new set of safeguards, ones that are transparent and accountable to the people." People. Ada nodded, her mind already racing with ideas for how they could achieve that. But first, she needed to put pen to paper, or rather fingers to keyboard. "We should write a manifesto," she said, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "Something that outlines our vision for technology's role in society, a declaration of principles and guidelines for any future innovations." Markham smiled, his expression filled with respect and admiration. "You're always thinking ahead, Ada, always seeking out the next challenge. It's what makes you so remarkable." Ada blushed, feeling a warmth spread through her chest at Markham's words. She knew that this new world they had created would be far from perfect, but as long as they continued to push boundaries and ask questions, to seek truth and justice in every corner of their society, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city, Ada turned toward Markham once more. Her heart was filled with love for him, for this new world, and for all the possibilities that lay ahead. "We'll build a better tomorrow," she said firmly, her voice ringing out clear and strong. Markham smiled back at her, his eyes shining with devotion. "Together," he replied, drawing her close. "We'll face whatever comes next hand in hand." And as they walked off into the vibrant dawn of their future, Ada knew that this was only the beginning, a new chapter in a story that would unfold with each passing day, shaped by their unwavering commitment to freedom and truth. The near future they had once known, the one where everything seemed predetermined by cold, impersonal algorithms, now seemed like nothing more than a distant memory. In its stead was a vibrant tapestry of possibility, a future, woven from the threads of human ingenuity and determination, and Ada knew that as long as she held hands with Markham, faced whatever challenges lay ahead together, there would be no limit to what they could achieve.